Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in time and space. Welcome to Just the Word TV, and thank you for joining our daily morning devotion. This channel is built on one mission to help you hear what God actually said, not tradition, just the Word. So, today we're going to be talking about, or kind of just giving you a different perspective today. And you understanding that God is not expecting you to just go about your life and not release. God is not expecting you to just take the trials of life and just hold it within yourself. While we are told to basically not murmur, our basic we have something built into our spirit, into our soul, and that is basically called a prayer of lament. So to help you or to help us get a good picture of this, I'm going to give you some imagery. And I think this is the type of imagery that everyone has basically had, or they understand what this looks like. So, have you ever used a pressure cooker? It's a kitchen tool that we all know of. If you have made oxtail or any type of meat that is very tough, but you need it done very quickly, a pressure cooker is the best thing. So, by sealing a pot and building up a high pressure steam environment inside, it cooks food much faster than conventional methods. But every pressure cooker has a critical safety feature, that little valve on the top. As the pressure builds, that valve releases steam in a controlled, steady hiss. If that valve gets clogged, if there's no way for the pressure to escape, the results are catastrophic. The entire pot can explode, sending scalding food and metal flying. Life, in this same way, is a pressure cooker. The heat gets turned up by disappointment, by grief, injustice, and confusion. Pressure builds inside of our hearts and our minds. And if we don't have a way to vent that pressure safely, we will eventually explode in anger, bitterness, and anxiety or despair. Thankfully, God, our Creator, knows how we are wired. He created us. He knew the pressures we will face, and He installed a divine pressure release valve into the human soul. It is a form of prayer that our modern tidy church culture has often forgotten or even discouraged. Like I said before, is the prayer of lament. And in this episode of the series, Prayer and Worship, Maintaining Alignment, we're going to learn how to use this God-given tool to find stability in the middle of the storm. So you might be thinking, wait a minute, aren't we supposed to be joyful? Isn't complaining a sin? And this is why we need to draw a crucial distinction, the one that the Bible makes very clear. There's a world difference between lament and murmuring. Paul warns us in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 10, and do not grumble, as some of them did and were destroyed by the destroyer. So the Greek word here for grumble or murmur means to mutter or complain against God in a spirit of rebellion. It is the sound of the Israelites in the desert turning their backs on God and whispering to each other, God isn't good. He brought us out here to die. Murmuring questions God's character and his goodness. It's a complaint aimed away from God. Lament is the complete opposite. Lament is a raw, honest, and often painful cry aimed directly at God. It's not done behind his back, it's done face to face. It's bringing your shredded heart, your confusion, your pain, and laying it all at his feet. Lament doesn't say, God, you are bad. It says, God, my circumstances are bad. And because I believe you are good, I'm coming to you to protest what is happening. It's a profound act of faith. It is the safest pressure valve because you are venting your pain towards the only one who can actually handle it and do something about it. The Bible is filled with lament. Roughly a third of the Psalms are Psalms of lament. The entire book of Job is a masterclass in it. And of course, there's the book of Lamentations, a heartbreaking five chapter corporate lament over the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. Is a national cry of anguish. Listen to the flow in one of the most famous individual laments, Psalms 13. It starts with raw pain. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? That's the pressure building. But David turns that pressure towards God. He complains to God, not about God. And in this process, this honest venting is what allows him to pivot. By the end of the same short psalm, he says, But I have trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt beautifully and bountifully with me. Lament is the bridge that gets you from how long to I will sing. God invites our laments because he desires an honest, authentic relationship with us. He's not looking for religious robots who pretend everything is fine. He's a father who wants his children to run to him when they are hurting. Venting our pain to God is a form of emotional regulation. It prevents the bitterness from taking root. It's a protest that actually deepens our covenant with him because we are saying, God, the world is not as it should be according to your promises. I'm holding you to your word. Please act. That pivot point or the pivot point is always a turn back to God's character. We see this beautifully in Lamentations chapter 3. After 18 verses of some of the most gut-wrenching poetry of all of Scripture, describing feeling like a target for God's arrows, his teeth broken with gravel, the author stops. He lets the steam out and then he makes a conscious choice. He says in Lamentations chapter 3, 19 to 24, remember my affliction and my wanderings, the wormwood and the gall. My soul continually remembers it and is bowed down within me. But this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul, therefore I will hope in him. So, were you able to see the pivot? He remembers his pain, but then he chooses to remember God. He moves from his burden to God's faithfulness. That is the genius of lament. It honors the pain without letting the pain have the final word. So, how do we apply this practically? So, there's a simple five-step pattern we see over and over in the Bible's laments. We can remember it with a simple acronym ABCD. A for address. Start by calling on God directly. Name him, O Lord, my God, righteous judge. This directs your prayer to the right person. And it goes back to understanding why we started with a prayer of adoration. Because a lot of the times you're going to see, as I said before in the previous devotion, you're going to see a lot of these prayers basically in one. A lot of the elements of different individual prayers you're going to see in one. So with the prayer of lamentation, it's very important that you understand who you're speaking to, right? And what a prayer of adoration also does, it reminds you of who you are and reminds you of who created you in the first place. Imagine you trying to Imagine you trying to get over your bad circumstance and you're praying, but you're not even connecting to the person that's supposed to help you. You're not even acknowledging the person that you're trying to contact. You're not going through your contact list and basically selecting Jehovah Rapha or going down your contact list again and selecting Jehovah Nisi. However, whatever it is that you need, we can't start this prayer of lamentation. We can't bring our petitions towards God if we don't address him and understand who he is. So it's very important that before we even start with the prayer of lamentation, that we understand who God is in the first place. Otherwise, who is it that we're praying to? Next, B, burden, unload. Tell him exactly what's wrong. Be specific. This is your complaint, the raw and honest expression of your pain or frustration. C, the cry for help. This is your petition. What do you want God to do? Save me, heal me, vindicate me, show me the way. D, declare trust. This is the pivot. After pouring out the negative, you make a conscious choice to state what you know is true about God's character, despite your feelings or circumstances. And E, exalt. End with a vow or a statement of praise. This final step seals your trust and looks forward in faith to God's deliverance. So let's put it into a imaginary or hypothetical. Let's imagine you are the victim of slander and gossip. Here's what an ABC lament might sound like. So A for the address. O Lord, my righteous judge. B for burden. People twist my words and stain my name. Their rumors feels like arrow. C, the cry. How much longer, Lord? Break the lies and defend my reputation. D, declaring of the trust. Yet I know no weapon formed against me will prosper. You are my shield. And then E, exalt. When you vindicate, I'll sing of your steadfast love before the congregation. So you see how that works? It takes the explosive pressure of injustice and channels it into a faith-filled, God-honoring prayer. And what it does as well, it allows you to release in a way that allows you to continue to execute as efficiently as possible. The whole point of us praying, the whole point of us worshiping is so that when we are doing the will of God, we can execute as efficiently as possible. It's very hard to do the will of God, and you have all of these things that are constantly you're holding on to the weight of the world, basically. It's hard to move and actually do the will of God with a right mind and with the right zeal if you're constantly just carrying on the weight of the world and carrying the weight of the tribulations, of the trials, of the circumstances, whatever they might be. So this allows you when you're in the midst of chaos, no matter what type of chaos it is, you have the ability to release the pressure. You have that little knob that is basically on the top of a pressure cooker that you can release when the pressure feels like it's about to, make you explode from the inside out. When you feel like you're about to implode, you have that ability to lament. You have that ability to do so. So a couple of things you should ask yourself. First, am I a pain bottler or a murmurer? Do I tend to stuff my negative emotions down or do I complain about God to others? Second, where in my life do I need to make that intentional pivot from complaint to trust? So I ask that wherever you are, to if there's something that you need to, get off of your chest, something that you need to release, do so in a way that is basically along the lines of the framework that we just described. Because what I don't want you to do is to basically walk that walk of Job where Job had the opportunity to lament. Job had the opportunity to basically bring his complaint towards God, but instead he was about to basically curse God's name, right? The entire time, the whole point or the entire thing that the devil is trying to do is to basically get Job to curse God's name. And in order for us to deal with the pain, because the pain is inevitable, no matter what we do, pain is inevitable. But how we respond to that pain, how we choose to what words we choose as we respond to that pain is ultimately up to us. And we have something called lamenting, where we can release that valve. We can release all of that pressure that is within us so that we can operate and do God's will. So we don't have to hang with a heavy heart when maybe if you might have been slighted or you might have been slandered or any type of way, you don't have to sit with that anymore. You don't have to deal with that anymore. Remember, we dealt with forgiveness, and after once you're dealing with that particular prayer of lamentation, it leads to forgiveness in a sense, because now you're at that place where you know what I've basically left all my complaints to God. I have nothing that is within me that is of bitterness or any anger at all. So it's more of a now you are in a place of forgiveness. And now you are able to operate the way you need to because now it's no longer something that you're holding on to. So that's the puzzle right there. That's something that you can do in terms of if sometimes we get into certain circumstances or certain situations and we are not able to get closure. And it sucks, even for me. Um, but what I've learned is that the Bible gives us wonderful tools like this prayer of lamentation, where even if we're not able to get closure, we can still pour out and vent to God. We can still give him our complaints. But and when doing so, it allows us to release whatever is on the inside of us that's trying to basically muddy up God's will. So that we can move forward and practice forgiveness and get to that place of forgiveness. And remember, forgiveness is not about the other person, it's about you. It's about you being able to finally release all of that. And a prayer of lamentation leads up to that forgiveness process. So I hope that this particular devotion, I hope that this devotion gave you some more insight. I hope that it was able to give you a different perspective on how we can speak to God and give you a perspective on the fact that God is not expecting us to be or expecting us to be robots. He's not expecting us to be machines. He wants us to pour out our complaints to him. He wants us to pour our complaints to him so that we can develop a relationship with him. Because as we're pouring out our complaints to him, as we are lamenting to him, we're going to be learning more and more about God to the point where we get to that place of forgiveness, as I said before. Because as we continue learning about God, we learn and we understand the nature of people, and we understand that, forgive them for they do not know what they're doing. And you just have to just let these things go because, as I said before, you are expected to enact God's will, and you have to figure out a way to not only to deal with the obstacles and the circumstances that comes in your way, but to deal with the emotional dump that comes from it as well. Emotional regulation at the end of it. So until next time, I ask that you all stay grounded. I ask that you stay humbled, And above all else, stay aligned with just the word. Thank you.